UCLA beat Penn State in what I would call easily the most stunning outcome of the season so far. And in terms of Penn State football, the most stunning outcome I remember maybe in my lifetime. I don't really know. I can't remember what happened when I was 8 years old. I will give it credit. This was the most out-of-nowhere 4.5 Chalai game I've ever seen. A lot of my former colleagues, the esteemed Jennifer Dell included, were working this game, and candidly, I don't think they really expected what they got. That's why you play the games, though. That's why God has us play the games. We got to honor the rule around here. The rule is we talk winners first. I'm just telling you, flat out, respectfully to UCLA, 98% of this is going to be about Penn State. But you deserve the spotlight. UCLA was there to play dead. That's what their job was. Their role, even according to me last week, their role was to just make sure the lights are on in the stadium, make sure you unlock the locker rooms, and make sure you show up on time. But this is Penn State's get-right spot. This was the medicine they needed, and they got poisoned. Penn State got poisoned. Nobody told UCLA. Nobody told them what the role was. So they had the audacity to show up and compete. Yeah, it'll take you a long way. It really will. Nico Iamaleava ends up playing the game we all waited for him to play at Tennessee. Just unbelievable effort yesterday. Nico's taken a fair amount of criticism. I've been critical of him, but I will tell you, Nico Iamaleava played out of his mind yesterday. Just all things considered. I mean, think about what was expected versus what you ended up getting. Think about how inexplicable Jim Knowles and Penn State played him, but that's only part one. You still got to take advantage of it, and he took advantage of it. And I will tell you one thing in the Big Ten that's been a hallmark for a long time is the middle to lower tier teams in the Big Ten never have dynamic quarterbacks. It's one of the big differences you notice about the Big Ten and the SEC. When you play like that bottom half of the Big Ten, they never have dynamic quarterbacks. In the SEC, Mississippi State can randomly have a future first-round draft pick at quarterback, just mentioning them generically, like Arkansas, Kentucky, like randomly they can just have one. What you saw yesterday is you saw a very bad UCLA team that just happens to have a 7-figure per year quarterback who came from Tennessee, and we all remember that story. So unbelievable. Okay, congrats. I mean, I'm going to talk about UCLA a little more at the end. Not a golf clap, just a full-throated clap for you. This is about Penn State. Here's where my head was at yesterday. I was getting to see bits and pieces of this game live. We were headed into Doak Campbell Stadium at Florida State. And so, you know, first off, you got to check and see if your app's working right. This is one of those games. It happens about 2 or 3 times a year. There's a score that starts coming in that's so shocking, so jarring, you think to yourself, oh, the app's messed up. It means Penn State's up 27-7. And then you look and you go to like another website, and they all say the same thing. Then you ask your buddy, hey, you got a score on this? YouTube TV, you got it pulled up? Well, there it is in living color. Yeah, oh, wow, that's the real score. So I was in complete and utter disbelief at witnessing this. I don't remember every Penn State game I've ever watched. I just remember none of them have ever hit me in the face like this. 285-92, I think was the yardage edge at the half. So I will tell you a first that happened today. We do the Sarah McLachlan special every week. Hold on just a second, Prez. We do the Sarah McLachlan special every week. I have never had members of a fan base collectively demand that I make their team the Sarah McLachlan special until today. It's almost like the fan base has resigned and they want someone to hurt other than them. I know that's Jesse's attitude. He's been moping around here all day. So, ladies and gentlemen, where else do we go but State College, Pennsylvania, by way of Pasadena, California? Penn State is the Sarah McLachlan special. They were 24.5-point favorites entering the game, and they were down 20 at the half. James Franklin, Jim Knowles, Andy Kotelnicki, making a combined $47 billion per year, got beat by a first-time ever 33-year-old play caller who, I kid you not, admitted he didn't even know how to work the headset during the game, and a coach making his P4 debut. UCLA is so horrible. They entered the game 0-4 this season. They lost 2 games to the G5. They got beat by New Mexico 35-10, and they scored on the first 5 drives. They put up 42 on Jim Knowles. They went 6 for 6 in the red zone. They ran it for 270. They punted once in the first quarter, Josh, the entire game against Penn State. They punted once. They had a 19-minute edge in time of possession. They went 10 of 16 on third down. They went from having not held the lead this entire season to never trailing in this game. Katron Allen, just mind-boggling. Averaging 6 yards a touch, had 2 touchdowns yesterday, 9 carries in the game. I don't even know how to explain it. I have no idea. Penn State is the first top 10 team to lose to an 0-4 team or worse since 1985, and when reached for comment, producer Jesse, the most loyal Penn State alum/fan that I have ever met, was quoted as saying, "I'm out." And then he walked out of the room. The Sarah McLachlan special, the easiest one of the year. Penn State implodes at the hands of UCLA. Clemson and Penn State somehow returned everything that you think a team needs to compete at the highest levels, and they regressed. And I always caution on the show about not getting carried away with returning starters, returning production, but returning production is kind of important, and they had a lot of it. And then the production they didn't have, like at wide receiver, they went and got via the portal, and they're just worse. And there's several theories out there as to how, but you remember what I said last week, because I really meant it. I wouldn't say stuff like this if I wasn't intentional about it. I told you after the Oregon game, I'm not prone to flying off the handle and knee-jerk reactions and hyperbole after one loss. The Oregon game was not one game. And I'm not sure outsiders really understood that as much as people close to Penn State did. The Oregon game was a referendum game. The Oregon game wasn't even like a report card or a midterm. It was kind of a final exam in a sense that if you failed the final exam, it was kind of done. Anything thereafter didn't matter. Now, what I underestimated was how immediately the team would reflect that. I expected the fan base to reflect it immediately, and they did. Like a lot of them said, that's it. This was the one. We can't get it done against them. We'll never get it done under this guy. I'm out. A lot of them said that last week. I've never seen Penn State's team say that. I've never seen collectively the energy given off by the organization say that until yesterday. And I just underestimated how immediate it would be. Landon Tangwell, who, by the way, does a great job kind of covering Penn State, covers a little beyond Penn State in the Big Ten. I highly recommend you give him a follow. But I saw him say this last night. He said, after Oregon's win over Penn State, Josh Pate said he thought the loss marked a new trajectory for Penn State football, but he wasn't sure if it was positive or negative. Well, you got your answer quickly. He's right. He's right. I spoke about timelines a lot last week. And just to remind people, in case you missed last week's show, remember we're at that point 24 hours on the heels of Oregon beating Penn State. Penn State folks are distraught at this point, not even knowing what was coming down the road, but they were distraught at this point. And I didn't lean away from it. I leaned into it, and here's what we said about the timeline and how the Oregon loss changed everything on last week's show. I think last night's result began a new timeline for Penn State football, and I have no idea which one it is. Because it could be that it began a trajectory that ends with James Franklin not at Penn State anymore in like 3 years or something like that. And I'm not saying fired. I don't even know how it would happen. I'm speaking hypothetically. I'm just saying I could envision 3 years from now, Franklin's not there anymore, and the conversation is, this really began with that Oregon game a few years back. Nothing was ever the same after that. It could be that, but I'll tell you what else it could be. It could be that James Franklin looks himself in the mirror and says exactly what I just said. That was as good as it's going to get with my current way of doing things here. Last night was the end of James Franklin's Penn State 1.0, and tomorrow begins James Franklin Penn State 2.0. Well, here we are in the 2.0 era. Look, I don't know how they get it back. There are no guardrails here. They're sort of off the cliff now. We've never been here before. So the entire time James Franklin's been at Penn State, there have been a lot of big games they've been in and they've lost. And up until about 5 minutes ago, I always went back and forth on the show with a lot of viewers, even some Penn State fans, because they kept getting close and they kept just bumping their head against the wall instead of breaking the wall down. And then people would yell, oh, James Franklin's overrated. And I would say, no, he's not. No one rates him top 5, but they rate him in the 5 to 10 range, which is exactly where a guy should be who beats everyone in the 10 to 20 range, but falls against the teams and coaches that tend to be in the 1 to 5 range. And I was okay with that because that's a really easy team to figure out. That's a really easy coach to figure out. And I'll defend him. If people say he's overrated, I'll defend him because he's winning the games that, you know, odds makers kind of indicate he's supposed to win, and he's losing the ones they say he's supposed to lose. But hey, really quick timeout. We'll get right back to the video. Do me one favor. Make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep the show free. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep doing college football year-round, and we appreciate it. All right, back to the video. Those were the guardrails, and the guardrails are gone now. You know, in Tennessee and in rural Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, they have a lot of mountainous terrain. And so sometimes, like if you've ever flown into Harrisburg and you try to drive to State College, it's not like landing in Wichita and driving to Kansas City or vice versa. That's a straight shot. And you can see 6 miles in any direction. Sometimes you can't see 60 feet in any direction when you're driving through hills. But you feel a little sense of comfort because they're guardrails. So that even if worst case scenario happens and some guy sideswipes you or you have a blowout, the car's going to hit the guardrail. That's been Penn State football for a long time. I have felt such at ease that even at the worst, we're not really getting that far off the road. There are no guardrails anymore. Guardrails are gone. That's what I meant when I said the Oregon game was a point of no return for the James Franklin 1.0 way of doing things. There's no going back to the way it was. So now, when you look at the fact that they still got to play Indiana and they still got to play Nebraska and they got to go to Iowa, they go to Ohio State, they go to Michigan State, they will lose one or more of those games, and there's no limit to how bad it could be. You thought the floor on this team may be 9-3. I heard many people say in the preseason, this is the most slam dunk playoff team there is. They're not going to go to the playoff. They will not go to the playoff. In fact, they may be closer to flirting with 7 or 8 wins than they are 9 or 10 wins. And so, for the first time in a decade, which is about how long he's been there, total unfamiliar territory. And I don't really know how to process it. And I know a lot of you don't know how to process it. But here's the difference. Okay, so when I said what I said, here's what I expected to happen. I expected there to still be guardrails. I expected that there was a worst-case scenario that, of course, included a loss to Ohio State. And who knows, maybe even one more, and that's 8-4. But then James gets to the end of the season and makes a lot of changes that he knows he needs to make, and he course corrects, and he defines a little different way they're going to do this, this, and that. But you can't do that in the season. Well, the problem with making decisions as a head coach, which you get paid a lot of money to do, is once you make them, you've made them. You don't get to make new choices on your staff. You don't get to change your recruiting philosophy. You don't get to portal in new players in week 7. You're stuck with what you're stuck with. And it's no different than if you're driving somewhere and you miss an exit and you're on the interstate. You know you missed the exit, but the GPS says the next chance you have to turn around is 3.5 miles down the road. Imagine someone's in the back seat and they keep kicking you in the back saying, you're going the wrong way. Hey, we missed our exit. You're going the wrong way. Hey, where are we going? We're supposed to be back there. Well, you know that. You know that. The difference is they just get to keep saying that. Even though you know good and well, you already know what they're saying before they say it, but you can't fix it. You can't fix it because you got 3.5 miles to go. James Franklin can't fix a lot of this because he's got an entire season left to go. And that's even if he plans on fixing anything, was my point. I don't know because I can't get in his head. I don't know if he even sees fit to fix anything. I just know they missed the exit on this season. They totally missed it. And now the question that a lot of people are asking is, should they fire him? I have no clue how you even do that. It's $56 million to pay if you want to fire him, first off. I don't even wade into those waters. That's not my money. So I'm not sitting here telling anyone else how to spend it. And I know even if we were to look at James Franklin through the harshest of lenses, if you apply the logic lens on there, you do still have to bake in the opportunity for him to just have a down year. I'm not holding him to a different standard than I'm holding a lot of other coaches at high-level programs to, because I've said that about some coaches at other high-level programs. But okay, let's just say that's unacceptable to you, because it's your program, it's not my program. So if it's unacceptable to you, what's going to happen to him's up to him. I mean, be real now. You're not paying $56 million to buy him out. Now, if we get to the end of the season and something happens where a mutually agreed upon reduced buyout is negotiated, I don't know why he would do that, but maybe he does. Okay, well, that could change the calculus. If he were to take another job, of course, that changes the calculus. Follow-up question is, which job would it be? Frankly, I think there could have been some in play up until this weekend that aren't in play anymore. So I don't even know what would be on the radar there. I just know that there's still, in the back corner of my mind, actually in the front of my mind, there's a whole part of me that loves James Franklin. He's been great to us, so I root for him. But he knows all this is true. Can't fight it. The one thing I wonder is, and you're not going to get this out of him probably ever, and you especially wouldn't get it out of him in the middle of the season. I wonder if he looks at anything and unequivocally says, that I will change once I get to the end of the year. This person will not be here anymore once I get to the end of the year. That we cannot know. That we cannot know. But I will tell you one thing. There's still a long way to go in that season. And those are a lot of players and a lot of coaches who returned, in many cases, with one goal in mind. And that goal's probably out the window. Mathematically, they're not eliminated. But just looking at the quality of play and knowing there's not a whole lot of mystery about this team. It's not like this team's going to improve 30% in this compartment or this category. You kind of got what you got. They're probably going to lose more games. There's just a lot of things I'm worried about with Penn State football, product on the field that I've never worried about before. But I will tell you, if you were agnostic to this game, if you didn't have a rooting interest, if you just kind of were watching, if you were watching that CBS feed, something happened in it that I didn't know about because I wasn't able to watch it live. So I went back and watched a lot of the games this morning, and sometimes I'll watch all 22 copies, sometimes I'll watch broadcast copy. I chose to watch the broadcast copy of this game because I wanted to know how it felt. I also love, for games that are upsets, I don't just want to watch the plays. I want to feel, when did it start to set in? Like, when did the vibe, when did the mood start to shift? When did the broadcast team go from, oh, here we are because we're supposed to be here, to, oh, wow, underdog got out of the gate kind of hot today, to, this could actually happen. Well, it happened pretty quick in this game. But the most awesome thing I saw was I was texting back and forth with Adam Zucker because he is in studio for the Big Ten on CBS during the game. You see him, they toss to and fro from the studio in New York. And I've gone up there and worked with those guys when I was at CBS several times. And I've worked with Rick Neuheisel several times. I've been in studio when we're watching games that we're going to do reports on at halftime. Like, they're going to come to us for studio coverage. And so I've sat next to Rick Neuheisel several times, and we're just watching games on the desk. Brian Jones over there, we're just watching games on the desk because we're going to be the halftime for the game. So I've already known the vibe that he gives off and what it's like watching a game with him. All I ever did when I went to New York was I had Rick sit there and tell me UCLA stories and Washington stories and USFL stories and watch games with him. Awesome. You just keep your mouth shut. You're like a sponge. You learn a whole lot. Okay, so the situation at UCLA this week was head coach is gone, so you've got an interim head coach, Tim Skipper. Then they let go of the offensive coordinator, and they elevated Jerry Neuheisel, Rick Neuheisel's son, to offensive coordinator. And Rick is doing studio coverage for the pre-halftime and post of the game that Jerry is now the offensive coordinator in. And it didn't dawn on me till this morning. I thought, wait, that was the CBS game, which means Rick must have been in New York, which means he was watching his own son be the offensive coordinator for the game. And then I texted Zucker, and he said, oh, buddy. And he just started firing off videos to me. And some of you saw this. A lot of you saw this. If you didn't see this yesterday, This is unbelievable. I've had this vantage point, just never watching Rick watch his own son coach. This was Neuheisel in studios yesterday. Roll it, Bradley.
Let that clock keep going. Beautiful friggin' job here, son. Go! Score! Score! Boom! Go for two. Go for two. Go for two. Come on, baby. This kid is friggin' really good.
Iamaleava, huh?
Oh, this Iamaleava.
Did Rick Neuheisel have the slightest clue that Nico Iamaleava was going to bring that kind of joy to his life a few months ago when all that portal drama was going on? Just goes to show you, once you think you've got college football figured out, it confuses you all over again. But I watched that like 50 times this morning. That was unbelievable. Guys, I got nothing good to tell you at Penn State. I wish I did. Jesse was curled up in the fetal position when I got into work today. And honestly, he worked out of that posture most of the day. It's a miracle we even got the show put together. It's bad. It's bad. Was it Sister Hazel had that song Long Winter? Give me a long winter, man. Sorry. I would recommend you guys adopt a team. Just adopt it. Some people adopt a mile on the highway to clean up litter. Adopt a team. Or else your minds are going to go to places you really don't want it to go. Guys, you have got one of the highest paid coaching staffs in the country, and they had a staff that, truth be told, needed the game to kick off at 12:30 Pacific because they needed to get to a second job at Kroger later that night. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And if someone tells you it wasn't that bad, they're lying. It was bad. It's the worst thing I've seen. It was Bama Vandy last year, except that was a first-year staff. This staff has been there in many cases for a decade. Like they are what they are at this point. It was bad.